Why would you sell a property on social media? Why would you put your property onto Instagram? Guys, we're going to unpack it this morning. Does it really work? Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're back. How good is it?
First one back. Very fitting for the new year, I think. You get this
I
question
reckon
a
it
lot.
is too. Yes, I definitely do. And it's one of those things, Billy, where I remember when I started to put properties out onto social media about 7 years ago when I first came into real estate sales. And I remember a girlfriend saying to me, and listen, there was a lot of noise about it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. There was an enormous amount of noise. But I remember going out for lunch with a girlfriend. And at that time it was only friends that were following my social media. And they're seeing property in DY, property in Chroma, property in Collaroy. And a lot of I'm born and bred eastern suburbs. So a lot of my friends were like, it's just not working for us anymore, Lisa. But one girlfriend in particular said, why are you putting properties on there? Like, surely no one's going to buy a property off your Instagram or your Facebook page. I mean, they were the two big real estate portals.
Yeah.
And, we kept pushing forward, or I kept pushing forward. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I sold a property off Instagram. Actually, it was Facebook. I lie. I sold a property off Facebook at the time. And I've told that story many, many times. But, it then became a thing because I was like, well, there's really no other way to get a vendor's property out to the masses. A website can't really do it if they don't want to go onto the real estate portals. There was no other way. Of course, there were email blasts, but really, if you drill down, social media is really the TV of today, isn't it? Like, what do you do, Billy, after work? What are
Yeah.
you watching? Are you sitting there watching Sky News, or are you sort of scrolling through your mobile phone?
The hours on your screen time don't lie. If you go onto your settings, screen time, and look at your top 5 apps, there will be a social media platform in there somewhere, whether it's YouTube, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, one of them will be in there. That's what the statistics say. And so, yes, it's the TV of today, but then when you look at it a bit deeper, it's catching a very different type of buyer that may even be looking on realestate.com on domain, because these guys are sort of passively looking. If it just pops up on their feed, it's almost serving up what they want to be shown, versus someone that's going out of their way to go onto the platform of realestate.com just to look at property.
That's exactly right. And so, you want to be all things to all people. And the real estate portals, they do a phenomenal job. Like, they do an enormous amount of heavy lifting. But you're only going on to domain or realestate.com if you are actively looking for a property. Like, you're not just sitting there on a Sunday night going, oh, I don't have anything to do. I think I'm just going to scroll on the real estate portals. You're only looking onto those portals really if you are looking to buy. And so the audience that we capture on our social media is that, what we call an emotional buyer. Or a passive buyer, someone who we've just caught, and they weren't really looking to buy, but we just captured their attention there. And there's plenty of them. And how do we know? Because we've sold hundreds, if not thousands, actually, now, of properties via our social media channels. I mean, I'm not the only one in the office that does social media now. It was 7 years ago. It was just purely me that was putting a lot of my properties out onto my social media portals. And no, they're not the only platforms that I use. I'm a big advocate of the real estate portals, but Billy, you use social media all the time. Mark certainly uses his social media all the time. And I know for a fact that you boys have also sold properties right there off your social media. So
Yeah.
where's the benefit there, Billy? Obviously, I know the answer, but I want to ask you, and I want to see how you answer this. Where's the benefit there to let's say a vendor um, to put their property out onto those social media channels?
Well, I think there's two benefits. The first one is it normalizes the buying and selling process for them to follow along as a journey. Just to begin with, a lot of people get stuck at the first hurdle when it comes to buying or selling. It's like, where do I even begin? Who do I talk to? Very confronting. And the statistic is that it's an average of 3 transactions in someone's lifetime. Really low. People don't move around that much. Like, how often do we talk to families where they've been in their same home for 20 years? So it actually normalizes that process of them following along and seeing what happens day to day. That's from the vendor's side, and them becoming then buyers once they've sold. The other
Yep.
benefit, it's not a coincidence we're selling off the platform in the first place, because how do the buyers get there? Well, quite often they've been brought in from like a funnel of realestate.com or domain. And then if they're interested in following along the socials to see what comes next, that's where they then, personally follow your page. And so the property is going out to those buyers that are eager to see something first.
Yeah, yeah. And look, the reality is that, morning guys, morning to everyone that's tuning in. The reality is that you only need to scroll on your social media, Billy. If you're looking for barbecues on a Sunday,
Yeah.
it's no surprise that all of a sudden your feed is going to be absolutely flooded with barbecues until
Yeah.
you stop looking at barbecues. And so, it's exactly the same with real estate stuff. And it's funny, like, people will often say to me, I don't know how you just keep coming up on my feed, Lisa. But, well, I do, because you obviously engaged with some content that I had posted at some stage. And it's not all just, we're not all on our social media channels about, I listed this and I sold that. I mean, here we are, right, on Morning Minutes, popping up every morning on your social media channels, giving you information about what's going on in real estate world. But I just want to add to what you're saying there, Billy, about where's the benefit to a vendor of launching out onto our social media channels. I spoke with a vendor yesterday, beautiful property, circa $10 million. And he said, I'm not selling, Lisa. However, if you have a buyer that fits the criteria, I'm very open to you bringing that buyer through my property. And so the perfect channel for them is going out onto our social media, if they will allow us to, because they're not yet a motivated seller. They don't want to go out to the real estate portals, and they definitely don't want to be running a full-blown, what I call the ticker tape parade style campaign. They don't want to do auctions.
Yep.
They're not ready yet to sell. However, if there's a buyer there at the right price, then they're sellers. And so there's multiple ways that we can get their property out in front of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of eyeballs, and we're not asking them for anything at all in return. We still require the same paperwork, disclaimer. So, we can get them out to our social media channels. Now, that's the perfect vendor who says, well, if you've got a buyer, I'm okay with you reaching out to your database, and I'm okay with you putting my property out to your social media channels. And I can't tell you, I mean, Billy, we've worked alongside each other for enough years. You've seen it firsthand. But how many times have we sold a property right there off our social media channels and we haven't sold them cheaply? Why would any real estate agent want to undersell someone's property?
Yeah, that's exactly
I'm
right.
always right. But I'm always saying that we are the people will vote. The people will vote, and the people being the clients, the vendors, the people being the buyers. Now, why would a buyer want to buy a property via our social media channels? I'm going to ask you that question, Billy. I want you to answer that. I can see we've got some unusual comments coming through. I might just see if you can delete some of those. Someone who's we won't give them any airtime, but anyway.
Yeah, look, what I love to do and what the buyers receive really well is quite often a lot of video content of those platforms, and they're almost like little library banks of great information related to the property. So the video is very authentic. It's a walkthrough. It shows a lot more than what photos can. Quite often, once you've taken that initial inquiry with interest, it's another way to then qualify your buyer. Your vendor is really happy because they've seen a video sent through of something that looks super realistic as what you'll see when you walk through the property, not one of those, $4,000 real estate videos where it's just the agent walking past, the camera, and a lot of fancy music. And then the buyers, getting to see the property, before they've come through, and so they can make a good first impression. That's where I think it works.
Exactly.
We have good conversion.
100%. And, I came up, Mark and myself were trying to look for a word that we could use when we launched a property out to social media prior to it going out to the real estate portals. And we actually came up with, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago now, with Leanne Pilkington. We did an interview with Leanne Pilkington. And she's the, absolute queen of real estate Institute of New South Wales president. And we came up with the word pre-market, and I think that's really fitting. It's purchasing / seeing a property prior to it launching out to those real estate portals. For buyers, it's ideal because they get to be able to see and buy a property prior to it launching out to the real estate portals if we're able to negotiate a phenomenal result that works for the vendor. So, and it works tremendously well. Couple of fun facts. The fastest I've ever sold a property for a smashing result was 4 hours off my Facebook page. A property that I had sold, it was actually a street record at the time. It was going back about 5 years ago. It was a freshwater house. And for anyone that doesn't know where Freshwater is, it's a premium suburb on the Northern Beaches. 4 hours was the quickest sale. And then the highest one was a property that's ended up selling. It actually went out to auction, but I had launched it first out to my social media, and that was for $21.5 million. It still holds the record per square metre in Manly, even to this day. That was about 3 years ago now. A friend had seen the property come up on my Instagram page and had sent it over to a friend of his. Who ended up incidentally buying the property at auction. We ended up launching that one out to the real estate portals because that was the best advice that I had given to my vendors as to how we were going to achieve them an optimum result. So does it work? Absolutely. It's also a wonderful discovery phase for a vendor who says, Lisa, where do you feel my property sits in the market? We give them an opinion of value, but the true test is launching it out pre-market, out to the database and out to our social media, isn't it, Billy? Like that's just a wonderful discovery phase.
And quite often it amplifies your traditional marketing. It doesn't replace it. So it's just another way to get eyeballs, attention onto the property, and get buyers through in a different way of contact. So the results speak for themselves. It doesn't cost anything, but you do need the IP to make it work for you. It's not quite as simple as just a photo and a post.
There is that's exactly right. There is actually a lot that goes on behind the scenes, an enormous amount. You only need to see all of us agents running through properties on Mondays when we do our sales caravans, where we go through all of our new listings. You only need to see what goes on there behind the scenes when we're all there with our video cameras, running through properties, getting them out to you guys so that you get to see them first. And you get that advantage of, as I said, buying it first at the right price before we launch out to those real estate portals. Not to say that they don't do an enormous amount of heavy lifting. They certainly do. And we're always heading out to the likes of Domain and realestate.com. However, there's plenty of vendors out there that are saying, well, hang on a sec, I don't want to go to those portals. I'm not yet a motivated seller, but I'm happy for you to launch it out to your social media channels. And it works. As you said, it works.
Yeah, if you're seeing this, you're probably already following them, or you can at least just have a look into it. But any questions?
Exactly.
Just do a Google search.
Exactly. Billy, thank you so much. A joy as always. And
Thank you.
guys, I
Have a
look
good
forward to
day.
seeing you next Tuesday. Nice to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. See you later.
See you guys.
Bye.